Hello, this is Joe Novice again, and I have a video for you. The subject of something I know very little about, but I'm going to try it anyway. My grandson got a free Gokart frame from a friend of his, and he wanted to put a big 301 Predator on the back of it. Now this is a little child's go-kart, as you can see. It's pretty small compared to the adult go-kart, which is sitting there next to it. The little child's go-kart is a Coolster, and the adult go-kart is a Dongfang range commander. This is where the engine is going to sit, if we have any luck at all. This is the axle gear and the brakes. Fortunately, the brakes do work. Neither me or my grandson know anything about what we're about to do. We know nothing about gears or gear ratios, which will come into play later. In order to mount the Predator engine on the frame, you need one of these engine mounts. I recommend you get the one from Harbor Freight because it comes with rubber bushings and everything. I'm not sure where this one came from, but it's got about a 1-inch lip on it. I cut some semicircles. I didn't like the idea of welding it on the edge, so I cut semicircles in it and welded it, as you can see. And also, it wasn't exactly the right size for the 301 Predator. It probably would have fit the 212, the more popular engine. But in this photo, you'll see I had to cut about another 1/8 of an inch in one of the slots in order to get the holes to line up on the engine mount. Here it is, sitting in place, the engine in place. Looking down on it, you can see where the drive gear is going to go. Here's the first fire. Once we got it mounted, it's not ready to drive yet, but we wanted to fire the engine. It literally started on the first pull. First fire. So the question now becomes, how do we get power to the wheels? The preferred way is to use a torque converter, like the ones in the picture. The torque converters are the more desirable way to power a go-kart from one of these Predator engines, because they're able to multiply torque, get you going. It's a lot easier on the components with the torque converter. And so we had purchased the torque converter, but we could not figure a way to get it on there to where it wouldn't hit the frame, either backwards or forward. So we settled for a lesser device, which is a simple clutch. This happens to be a 14-tooth clutch, which we'll figure in later. Once again, we know nothing about gear ratios or the importance of them. All right, the go-kart had another problem. In addition to needing, the steering had been cut completely loose because it was felt that the rack and pinion was defective. You see the finger there, the rack and pinion would actually shoot forward. So we purchased a new rack and pinion, purchased several of them, and they were all too long. So since we didn't have a usable rack and pinion, we had to weld the old one back together. And so there's the welds. We put it all back together, and guess what? It worked, including the rack and pinion. Now here is the motor mounted, ready to go. It's got the clutch on there, onto the drive wheel. We are ready to test it. All right. Don't have any pictures here, so we're going to have to do some text. So we go up for the first run in the go-kart. It starts off, but won't even get up the driveway, which is an incline maybe 10 degrees. So we turn it around and it goes down the driveway okay, but when he gets into the grass to turn it around, he won't even make it through the grass. And this little clutch is mighty hot, which means it's getting overworked trying to get this thing going. We were very disappointed, so we head to YouTube for help, thinking we must have a gearing problem since this is plenty of horsepower for this little go-kart. We figure out that our gear ratio is about 3.5 to 1. You do this by counting the teeth on the engine shaft gear and the teeth on the axle gear. And this is a pretty tall gearing. So we plug this into a calculator, which you see here, and it calculates this go-kart, this little dinky go-kart is capable of going almost 50 miles an hour, which is utterly ridiculous. We're armed with this information that our problem is we can't get enough torque to go up any kind of incline, but it will probably run if you get it level or going downhill. So we push the cart as you see here. Out to the road, which is a slight downward incline where he's pointed. We crank it up, and there he goes, first run. Joe Novice follows up in his adult go-kart in case this thing breaks. So there he goes, no problem going down the hill. And now you're going to see him coming up the hill, and what a surprise this is. Full throttle. 44 miles an hour. You can hear my wife screaming. He had a little iPad floor pan, and with a thing which will calculate the miles per hour, and which is way too fast for a dinky little go-kart. So what we learned is we're geared for racing. Probably needs a push start. So we got to get the gearing to where it will pull this cart up hills. And so we figured out this is what we want, which is 10 teeth rather than 14. And that'll pull it down from 50 to 34 miles an hour.